Hello, everybody. This is Francis McInerney, and welcome once again to our Future Creators series. Future Creators is a comprehensive system for managing at zettabyte scale, and today we're going to talk about that great Future Creator, Apple, and see the fundamentals of how Apple did what it did. You're going to learn a lot today, and some of it is frighteningly simple. I warn you, this company is a lot simpler than you think. Everything Apple does is as uncomplicated as possible. That's how the thing works so well. Two things. One, everything Apple does is cloud-centric, not product-centric. Products are secondary in the Apple way of thinking. So it's all about the cloud and how the cloud works for you. But there's also underlying this a super fast ecosystem. We're going to discuss both of those things today and show you how the two fit together to make Apple what it is and how it is a real competition killer. In addition, something new. Apple's system, because it's cloud-centric, allows quick access to multiple unrelated markets. Now, we've seen many of the old multinational conglomerates try to do that in the past. They're almost all gone now. There are some Japanese firms left and some Chinese firms trying to do the same thing as the Japanese did in the past and the Americans did before that. But all of those companies are failing. This system allows you to do it and do it with remarkable effectiveness. Apple's in consumer electronics, we know that. It's moved into cars. This was something that we were able to predict because we understood this system back in 2009, and Apple is now in that space. Healthcare, we also predicted that in 2009, and Apple is now in that space 7 years later. So what you're learning today, you can predict a great deal from. Apple has entered the banking business. God help you if you're in banking, now that Apple's in your space. The model scales fast, and it kills the competition. People have gone up against Apple. They've been destroyed. What is it? Apple gets 92% of all the operating profits in cell phones for only 20% of the market share. Everyone else in the world competes for the last 18%. Unbelievable. Apple determines outcomes. It reorders the markets that it enters. And here's the key. Even if Apple vanished tomorrow, and no one lives forever, as we know, the companies it has eliminated and the markets it's eliminated will never return. They're gone, gone, gone. So it's vital that we study this system, understand what it's doing, and why it works so well. Let's start at the beginning. First of all, I want you to go back to my Cloud Inflation and Use seminar. I'm just going to repeat one slide from that seminar. The rest you can pick up from the seminar itself. It's quite detailed. Remember, we have three cloud membranes: the app membrane, the app enablement membrane, and the app delivery membrane. These are the three that comprise the cloud and enable it to inflate as it does. The cloud membranes interact, and this is the interaction envelope today, and here's the interaction envelope tomorrow. Now the key is, catch that tomorrow on the interaction envelope between these membranes. Those firms, and my good Japanese friends did not get this, who didn't do this, were just killed. Apple got this, no one else did. And it's important to remember that the cloud membranes, as we said in the Cloud Inflation and Use seminar, always interact. There is no fixed formula for this interaction, which is key to understanding, as you saw in my app membrane seminar discussing the app equivalency rule. This is a powerful, powerful thing. No fixed interaction formula. Successful business models always identify the most profitable interactions and get there first. That's all Apple did. Look at the membranes, where are the most profitable intersections, identify them first, and get there first. Now, I'm going to recast this on a slightly different way here. I'm going to flatten the 3 dimensions into 2 so you can see in terms of money, the all-important money factor here, how Apple sees this. At the center, we have the app membrane. Surrounding the app membrane, we have the app delivery membrane, which communicates the apps on the servers through to the devices that you use on the app enablement membrane. Now, when Apple started out on this route, it was in the MPEG-4 business. You all remember the iPod, PCs, laptops, the usual stuff. These were markets in the tens of billions. Apple used this very simple system of membrane interaction to begin to rotate around a circle, as I've cast it here, into markets in the hundreds of billions like tablets and phones. And the one hole left in this space is smart TVs, and we expect that to come soon enough. Now Apple is rotating through the app enablement membrane and its ability to connect to the app membrane, this whole cloud indifference factor that we've discussed in the past, into markets in the trillions. So Apple is now in trillion-dollar markets like healthcare and cars, and it's just entered banking as well. What will be next? Well, it could be almost anything, frankly, because this system allows you to rotate simply and easily and cleanly through these spaces and connect things that, except for the cloud, were unconnectable in the past for all the reasons that I discussed in my seminar on apps and my seminar on cloud inflation. Now, the key is that you've seen one, if you like, plane of growth in markets order of magnitudes larger than each other, but there's another growth vector here. There's another growth element that's spectacular. It's content. Apple can layer content, as much of it wants, any type it wants, whatever it wants, onto any of these spaces. And not only that, in many cases, connect them so that the content in one part of this circle will connect to the content in another. That's not necessary, but they can do it, and no one else can. And as you know, I've predicted that Apple will take a shot at Disney to make this a real smash hit. But there you have it, this enormous growth engine. It's so simple, it's so elegant, it's so uncomplicated, there's nothing to it. There's another element to this company, which I think is even more important because it's the enabling element that let all this happen. And that is beginning to understand the factors behind cloud indifference, what cloud indifference does and how it works. You have the app membrane, as I've discussed in my seminar on the app membrane. And sitting on the app membrane can be any number of apps of any type, sort, or description. The app membrane, the cloud, is completely indifferent to what kind of apps sit on it. And each of these apps can have independent business functions. There's no rule that says they've all got to be the same. It's not like TV where everything's wrapped in a commercial. They can be anything here. In-app, out-of-app, all kinds of stuff. You have the app delivery membrane, all important because this is what connects the devices to the app membrane. And today that's all Wi-Fi, simply because the sheer volume of traffic on these apps, you couldn't float it over cellular even if you wanted to. That's not happening. That's why Wi-Fi now takes 80% of all of the data traffic. And we can foresee other capabilities as well in the future. And I'll be discussing that with you in a seminar on the app delivery membrane. Now, the devices connected to the apps, the delivery membrane, can be just about anything. I've just put app enablement device 0, 2, and N. It doesn't say what the device is. There's nothing in this that says that the app has to be one type or another, or that the enablement device to which it's connected has to be anything. Apple can do all of these as long as it understands the basic interaction of the structure. Underlying this powerful, any user can access any app on any device, is something else. It's Apple's ecosystem. Here you see the all-important days of sales and inventory and days of sales and receivables that you know I count like crazy. I watch these data like a hawk. They tell me everything I need to know about a company's operations. Apple had an ecosystem velocity revolution nearly 20 years ago. So it's had a 20-year advantage in understanding all the ERP systems and everything else required to make its supply chain and customer relations management interact seamlessly. And those of you who saw Apple's seminar, must be 10 years ago. Oh, yeah, 10 years ago now, on how they used SAP will remember that's 10 years ago, and it was already mind-blowing. So this is Apple's ecosystem, 4 days of sales and inventory, 25 in receivables. Who do you know who can do that? Samsung certainly can, and it's absolutely killed them. And you can see that in their profit and sales numbers. But what you had is between 2001, 2003, this revolution in the ecosystem enabled the Apple Storm. Apple Storm was the unleashing of products like OS X. The iPod came in here. Apple Retail was launched. The iTunes, which is really just iCloud today, App Store, and so on. All of the basics of Apple were launched in this period. So that's a lot of years ago now. And Apple hasn't changed a single thing since. The ecosystem is still tight as it always was. The product base remains unchanged. And even if they move into cars, there's no fundamental difference in the way any of this is done. The system is simple, manageable, and Apple now has nearly 20 years of experience in making this work. Well, do you have 20 years of experience in making your system work? That's why you're listening to this seminar. Now, let's look at the impact of all this on Apple's R&D. Apple's R&D scales. This data shows that their ability to cover their R&D expense, irrespective of how innovative their products and services and apps are, is staggering. And you can see here the Apple Storm, 2001, 2003, once again, and almost immediately, because the ecosystem had been realigned in 97, 98, by the end of 2003, the whole operating earnings to R&D expense line just became uncoupled to Apple's and its investors' enduring happiness. Now, you can see too in the all-important cash and capital velocity indices the revolution back in 97, 98. And the fact is that this company, whether it's capital efficient or cash efficient measurements, does phenomenally well. And you try to lay your company out on this track and see how you do. It's not a pretty picture. These guys really made this happen. Now, as I said, nothing's forever, but this is a pretty healthy picture. This is a picture of real robust health and good management. Let's look at the impact on sales. And you can see the days of sales and inventory and days of sales and receivables on the right-hand axis. And notice that as those two came down, after the Apple Storm, sales just took off like a rocket. Once the ecosystem was designed and ready to go, once the Apple Storm was unleashed on top of that ecosystem, bang, this whole thing popped. Now, that's what you're going to try to do. That's what you're supposed to do. This is how you run a modern business. This is what business is all about. I always say, show me the cash. Well, here you have it, folks. Here you have it. Okay, what are the lessons for today? It's the cloud, stupid. This thing is a cloud-centric business, not product-centric. The app enablement devices themselves are secondary. You may think your iPhone is very cool and all the rest of this and well-designed, or your iPad and so on. Those devices in the system are secondary. I didn't have to bring them up once in terms of their product efficacy. I didn't have to touch the subject to show you how Apple scales. Competitors were product-centric and they died. Samsung just gave away its cloud operations to Google and said, no, we don't do that. Well, that's right. They learned that lesson the hard way. Now, ecosystem velocity drives all operations. There's nothing in the Apple structure that is not driven by its ecosystem velocity. Anything that does not accelerate Apple's ecosystem is outsourced, and you should be doing the same thing too. As Steve Jobs said, anyone could have done this. Remember that famous interview he did with the Wall Street Journal? Anyone could have done this. I'll never forget it. But as he said, they didn't. And the key here is, none of this is patentable. I didn't show you anything that you can patent. Nothing is patentable. This is just pure common sense business management run for good cash velocity. Apple gets control of outcomes and premium prices. Do you? Disproportionate amounts of operating free cash flow from that market. It gets market leadership for years. Apple's been established in its markets, and it's almost impossible to displace because of this cloud-centric integrated structure. Now, I've been future creating companies since 1976. I'm happy to bring you more of these, and I think we should continue this discussion. We'll see you in the next seminar. Thank you very much.